So, some crazy information on The Last of Us 2 dropped yesterday. And it would seem that if you're one of the few people who gave the game a mixed review or a negative review, even though on the official scorecard over here on Metacritic, there are 0 negative reviews from official critics, 7 mixed reviews, and several that are unscored. Quite a few in these unscored are somewhat negative, which is somewhat interesting. But if you're one of these people, it would seem that you might have received a email or a phone call from a Sony representative to perhaps clarify how you feel about the game and maybe unpack your comments. That's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. We've all talked about the corruption going on with this game, and it just keeps getting more interesting. I was blown away by this. So Polygon wrote a whole article on this. I want to go over that in a second because it's really insane. And I wonder, will IGN cover this? Probably not. Of course not. IGN, I like being extra hard on them because they've really been the biggest shills for this game. And they're probably, I would say, probably the biggest access media gaming website. That's for sure, in my opinion, probably IGN. And they've really just gone to town to promote this game and simp for it. It's almost disgusting on some levels. But, you know, the game is kind of unraveling. 80% week-on-week sales drop, and I think it's going to probably continue to drop. We'll see how next week shakes for the game, but I think this game is going to shake apart, and it's going to be hilarious to watch this game crash and burn if that does happen. But, of course, Neil Druckmann still playing victim. I pulled this up first, but he's on there, talking about, well, it was terrible because I was out there and people are just sending me all kinds of hate. Saying the game is garbage is apparently a hate comment. It's insane, the level of simping and spin that these people are putting on this game. But I want to get to this. I got to give them credit. I talk a lot of trash about Polygon because for the most part it's a very, very trashy website. But this is actually a pretty decent article. It's not the best because they still have a lot of misinformation in here, like saying that one of the biggest reasons that people hate this game is representation, which is not true, but they still want to spin that. They still cover up for Neil Druckmann when he talks about how, he got hit with hate on social media, which was criticism and people that were upset with the direction that they took the characters in the game, particularly Joel. He is, of course, spinning that to saying that it's istophobes coming after him, stuff like that. They also do not cover the DMCA strikes. They do mention, though, and I've played that clip in a video where Neil Druckmann says, "Oh, that was one of the worst days of my life," and they conveniently skip over the part where he talks about taking down YouTube videos in the YouTube community. They conveniently skip over that. Every outlet has. Not one outlet has covered the DMCA strikes. So it's not a perfect article, but for the most part, they actually cover a lot of stuff in here that a few people don't. Noticeably stuff right here. So we're going to start down here. A discussion about the online or the survival horror game. We're going to start after the first part here, which is trash, and get to the really interesting part. So The Last of Us Part 2 has become a minefield. Devs, critics, and fans butt heads over one of the year's biggest games. So we're going to start here. A discussion about the survival horror game was also hampered by unusually restrictive embargo guidelines, which included sentences like do not include any beat-by-beat descriptions of pivotal narrative or cutscene moments, do not reveal the fate of any character or the inciting event. This prevented websites from discussing any specifics of the game's story, which was tricky, considering that the game reveals something surprising within its first 2 hours that impacts the remainder of its 20 to 30 hour game. Spoilers. That's, of course, the death of Joel. Curiously, at least one website, GameSpot, actually published 2 reviews, one without spoilers and one that dove right into those details. The latter was published after the embargo was fully lifted. So the reason that they have this in here is, of course, because Naughty Dog didn't want you to know that Joel was taken out. And they actually do mention how they've misled consumers because they made it look like Joel was going to be a big part of the game. Naughty Dog did a lot of lying for this game. And they actually mentioned in this article, why did Naughty Dog do this? Well, it was because of control. To control the narrative. One of the reasons that Naughty Dog, but see, they do leave out the fact that Naughty Dog was going around taking down leaks. They discuss the leaks in this article, but they don't mention the fact that Naughty Dog lost control of the narrative and decided to go and DMCA every single meme and video that even mentioned or discussed leaks. There's a lot of stuff there. They were desperate to regain that control that they lost because of that, and they went fully scorched earth with it. And they didn't want to lose that control. The article doesn't mention that. But I got to say, I say it's a decent article compared to what we usually see because they actually do discuss this stuff. So why go through such lengths, especially when the internet was flooded with half-informed takes and speculation based on what had already leaked? Control. Naughty Dog no longer steered the narrative of The Last of Us 2, and this was one of the ways to regain control. The studio had already gone to great efforts to maintain a tight grip on what folks knew about the experience. As Kotaku reported, and I wonder if they will mention this, that we're going to get to, because Kotaku also gave the game kind of a mixed review. Naughty Dog at one point showed a fake scene during a trailer to make people believe that a character would be more present in the game than they actually were. And that's what I was talking about before, the misleading of people. That was with Joel. Joel was like, I'm not going to let you do this journey alone. It's fake. It's fake. The vibe around the game hasn't gotten much better since then. On June 12th, Vice published its review of The Last of Us Part 2, in which critic Rob Zacny said that while the game had memorable moments that made for great spectacle, he was less taken with the story and characters. Nobody ever reconsiders their quest for vengeance, Zacny wrote. Everyone acts under a kind of vindictive compulsion that goes little remarked and unexamined. So here's where it gets interesting. So I said it was Polygon that was contacted. It's the Vice guy that was contacted, and he told Polygon. Polygon doesn't say if they were contacted or not, but they still are contacting people, and I think that that's pretty crazy. Oh, well, would you mind clarifying why you thought that way, sir? So let's take a look at this, because this is the big bombshell here. While the vast majority of reviews have lavished The Last of Us Part 2 with all sorts of praise, a handful of outlets, Polygon included, have been slightly more critical of the blockbuster game. According to Zacny, Vice's review prompted a Sony representative to reach out on behalf of Naughty Dog. They felt that some of the conclusions I reached in my review were unfair and dismissed some meaningful changes or improvements, Zacny told Polygon over Twitter messages. He clarified that the exchange wasn't confrontational, but that it was nonetheless unusual, as the site doesn't typically have big publishers asking in an official capacity why a review reads the way it does. Such things can happen, of course, though often with smaller developers or from publishers who have spotted a factual error in a piece that they want corrected. I was happy to unpack a bit of my reasoning, however, and received a very cordial message in response, he said. Naughty Dog's PR team declined to comment on Polygon's inquiry about its exchange with Vice. So while it wasn't confrontational, it was nonetheless unusual, and that's kind of the big bombshell here. So we're at the point now where if someone gives a slightly less than positive review of a AAA game, a Sony strongman might give you a call and say, what's going on here, buddy? Why'd you decide that maybe this wasn't the best take for the game? Maybe you want to go back and explain this for me a little bit better? Is that where we're at now? If you give a game a bad review, you have to worry about a phone call from a company. I wonder what happens for the next AAA game. Maybe Vice doesn't get an early review for the game, huh? Maybe Polygon won't receive that game in the mail. Maybe it'll get lost. We know that's happened. Forbes and a couple of other outlets did not get an advanced copy for the game. I would have to go back and look, but I wonder if people at Forbes gave AAA games from Sony negative reviews before. And maybe because they haven't completely played ball, they are not getting early review copies of games anymore. I don't know. But, there's things that you can do. I would imagine an unusual call from Sony is probably not a good thing for them. So, pretty interesting stuff. I wonder what old Neil Druckmann will have to say about that. Of course, he'll probably play victim. I do want to go through this article, though, because there's some interesting stuff. We can skip down here because they go to where there was a developer that compared Last of Us 2 to Schindler's List and stuff. It's crazy what's happened with this game. But we can go down here where Polygon actually admits, but they don't go very far with it, that the industry is putting, this is in their words right here, a protective shield around The Last of Us Part 2 that can be seen anytime any creatives or talent behind the game jump into critical conversations about it. It's made talking about the game exhausting. On one hand, we have istophobes trying their hardest to tear down the game for its inclusion. On the other hand, we've got people who actually made the game putting their figurative fists up. On the third hand, we've got fans and professional critics trying to share their own takes on the game, good, bad, and everything in between. So, of course, Polygon doesn't go totally there. This is why there's still a trash outlet, because they almost get it. And then they jump back into their own crazy woke takes. Like, oh, everyone that hates the game is an istophobe, but what's the conversation about? It's really disingenuous. So it's just funny. They almost get it, and then they blow it. But it's nice that they do talk about that, like, you should be able to be critical of the game without being bullied, but at the same time, they're bullying people that are critical of the game. But still, a better article than most that I've seen so far, because they almost touch on stuff. They talk about the control that Naughty Dog has tried to have over the game. And they revealed some pretty bombshell information, some pretty big bombshell information that Sony's going around and contacting people for comments on their reviews, which to me is insane. I can't even think of the last time something like this on this level has happened with a game. That's why, like, when people call this game the Last Jedi of video games, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I wonder what else will come out on this game, because I think, I didn't plan on making a Last of Us Part 2 video today, but when I saw this, it's like, how can I not make a video talking about this? This is insane stuff here. We have an outlet kind of admitting that there's desperation behind the developer to control the narrative for this game. and that they're going around contacting people with bad opinions and trying to maybe, in some ways, strong arm them into clarifying their comments. Maybe you want to do an update to that review, buddy. It's crazy stuff. And it's probably going to get worse. If those sales continue to drop, I expect Neil Druckmann to go out there and make crazy comments because the guy can't keep his mouth shut. And I expect other people to come out and kind of lose their mind, particularly Access Media. I expect them to, you're going to see articles, it's the phobes dominate gaming, they didn't support it. Right now, they have the headline that the game sold very well in its first week. But, where are the headlines now other than a few websites that are talking about that 80% drop? Don't see IGN covering that, and I don't think you will. They didn't cover it in this article either. It's a very strange time in the games industry, and I just wonder how far this is going to go. But like I said, the big info here, they're contacting people now. And I cannot wait to see more people come forward because there's at least 7 or 8 of them. Will any of them come forward, talk about their experiences? We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know your comments. What do you guys think about all this? Also, if you would share the video, make sure you still subscribe. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out.